All right, so here we have a 2006 Nissan Pathfinder with the 4-liter engine. This customer, the radiator exploded on him. So we started to fix it in his driveway, pulled the radiator out, some ducking here, started to get into it. He got a little scared, a lot more hoses looked like they need to be replaced than he thought. One is very hard here. One of the heater bypass hoses goes underneath the intake right here. So he basically called a tow truck and now the vehicle is here. So we're going to go ahead and start where he left off. Looks like he was at taking the thermostat out. So we'll go ahead and we'll clean the surface for the thermostat and we'll reinstall a new thermostat and start with replacing some hoses. Okay, so here we have the thermostat housing where it would mount up to. So we want to go ahead and clean the surface off here. We want to be very careful not to gouge into the aluminum. All right, so we'll go ahead and spray a little bit of brake clean on that to clean it up. Okay, so go ahead and wipe off our edge there. All right, so being that this car came in as a basket case, we just have a group of bolts to put back. So this is our thermostat housing, our new thermostat we're putting in. So we need to identify which bolt it is. There's certain ways to identify bolts. So this will be 3 bolts. They all have the same mounting depth between them. So they're all going to be consistent in the same size. The other one that gives the thermostat away is these 3 bolts here, all the same size, and we have some RTV traces on each bottom. So that would tell us that these 3 bolts are part of the thermostat housing. So we'll go ahead and we'll get our gasket lubed up with some gasket sealer, basically a thin coat that'll take care of any irregular blemishes, like if we accidentally gouge the aluminum casing or anything like that, that would seal up any of the imperfections. So we'll go ahead and get some gasket maker, one on the back side of this and then one on this, and then we'll sandwich them together. All right, so here we have our new thermostat and thermostat housing that we got from Auto Parts Direct to You. It comes with this gasket here. So this is a little different than the normal gasket. This gasket also comes with a sticky side to it. So this sticky side will be what adheres it to the thermostat housing itself. If not, what we were going to do is put a little thin coat of Permatex on here and a little thin coat, let it air dry about 10-15 seconds or so, become tacky, and then put them together. But this one comes with the sticky back, so it's a much better gasket for alignment. So we'll go ahead and get it all in place. I want to make sure we don't get anything on our gasket, a grain of sand or anything like that will keep us from sealing really good. So just a little added protection, we will do a little bit of, just a tiny bit of sealing on the outside of this gasket. Some coolant bolts, when they come in, they're blind, which means they do go into another passage of coolant. So it would be possible for coolant to walk its way up the threads and out. So before we put these bolts in, we're going to go ahead and we'll just do like a little dab on the side here, and that'll help seal up all those threads. So in case it's, that is a blind hole, we don't want to have any kind of leakage, the steam coming out or anything there. So we'll seal up all our bolts as we're putting them in there. So we'll go ahead and put our thermostat housing on now. All right, so we have all our bolts in. We have some sealant on the threads. We're going to go ahead and set that up very So we want to make sure that all of these 3 bolts have the same torque. So this is an 80 inch-pounds. All right, so here we have our inch-pound torque wrench. Now, we do have an extension on it. Anytime we add an extension, that is going to decrease the amount of torque because of the twist action here. We're still going to stay at 80 on this one. It's a short extension. The reason why we're doing that is because we don't have the depth to get in there, so no extension would be the best. All right, so we're going to be replacing 2 separate circuits of the coolant system. The first one is going to be a kit that we got from Auto Parts Direct to You. It's going to be coming off the thermostat. This is going to be one of our heater bypasses. It's going to go all the way down. There are some metal lines that we're going to be just replacing the rubber on. So this line goes all the way down to our oil filter. This oil filter has a cooler on it. So our oil has a cooler. And then it makes its way all the way back to a metal line and then underneath the intakes. Now this is where the customer got a little scared. There's a little hose back inside here, very hard to see. That's one of the hoses within this loop of a system that we're going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and start on this side and removing our hoses and replacing them. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install our new hose. Now it makes a loop up around the thermostat, but if you didn't know which way it went, there's an arrow to tell you the flow. So thermostat outward and then down. So that's kind of there, so in case you didn't know. So now we have that one done. We'll move down to our next one. Okay, so the next one is on the other side of this pipe down here. All right, so this is the pipe where we just made the connection. To get this other line here, we're going to have to remove our mounting tabs. We might even have to remove this hose. But we have a little 4-inch hose for the inlet or outlet of top of the block there. So this is just going to get us movement on the pipe. All right, so on our water pipe down here, we have a clamp style hose clamp, and the ears are facing towards the driver's side, where we can't get our tool in there this way and open it. We can get it in this way and open it. So I'm going to try to rotate the clamp around so I can grab the ears of that clamp. All right, so now we have our clamp loose. Now next would be breaking the seal on the hose there. Whoa. Okay, we can't yank too hard on the pipe because we'll bend it. All right. All right, so there's the clamp, how we were fighting right there. All right, so here we have our new hose for here. We're going to replace this clamp with a worm clamp, but it's probably going to be best to use this same style for this lower point again. Only because we can't get an extension with a swivel, it still doesn't reach down in there. And these clamps still look pretty good. All right, so let's make sure we got the same bend, because it was a little different. Not much. No marks. So these clamps are set up with a little locking tab. So basically you can fit it on there and then knock it off and it will self-tighten itself up. These are pretty much used factory everywhere. So we'll go ahead and get this in. We're going to give a little bit of lube on our hose so that it goes on really nice. All right, so now we'll go ahead and reattach our pipe. All right, so the next group of hoses that we're going to do is there's a throttle body like preheater here. So we're going to go ahead and we have one inlet hose, one outlet hose, and then we have this is a heater bypass hose. So this is going to come all the way back to our block that goes into the heater. So we're going to go ahead and replace these lines now. All right, so we'll go ahead and remove our first throttle body hose. All right, so now we're going to do these two hoses. Here are our other throttle body. And then we have a heater bypass hose here. We'll go ahead and release our hold downs. All right, so now we have all of our heater hoses and all our coolant bypasses and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead now and put the radiator and shroud and fan in. All right, so here we have our two radiators laid out next to each other. We're just comparing to make sure everything is the same between the two. Looks like we have a mounting bracket we need to transfer over on both sides. And it looks like we also have some extra fittings to put on to accommodate our transmission cooler down here. So we'll go ahead and get started by breaking down our mounting brackets. All right, so when we're putting in our radiator, there's a couple things we need to get to happen. The bottom tabs here, this is where our condenser sits into the bottom tabs and is bolted in to our top bolt. So that's one alignment we have to do. The other one is going to be, this is the mount for the radiator going into the frame rail. So we have one on each side. So those are the 4 points that we're going to be lining up and the 2 bolts. So we'll go ahead and put the radiator in now. All right, so now that we have our radiator bolted in, we're going to go ahead and make our connections down to our cooler for our transmission cooler. All right, so we'll go ahead and hook up our transmission lines. We're also going to change the clamps here to the radiator side. We got one there. We have our other side. All right, so now we're going to attach our lower radiator hose. We have one mount that we got to make it through. Maybe like that.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our fan clutch on now. All right, so next we have our fan shroud. We have a lower cover and upper cover, and then we have a cooling fan assembly. We have two tabs at the bottom we're going to line up, and that's the lower support. We have some electrical connectors, one for this. We'll wait on plugging that in. Now we'll go ahead and put our shroud in. All right, so this is our fan shroud. It is two-piece. This is the lower. We're going to put this in first. This is the bottom, so we have a couple places where we can make our attachments for our hoses. That for the transmission cooler. So we'll put this piece in first. So it's going to go in like this. So we'll go ahead and position this one in first. Aha. All right, so let's back up a step. Let's put the fan and the shroud in at the same time. We'll go ahead and hook up our fan. We have our upper radiator hose. Go ahead and install that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our shroud back on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reattach our grill. couple push pins on the top. Looks like we're missing a few of those. That one might actually be broken. All right, so now that we do have some missing bolts or some push washers, we'll have to let the customer know so he can pick some up. But now we're going to go down below the vehicle and reconnect the lower shroud and then the transmission cooler lines in their hold down spots. All right, so we need to take off this belly pan right here to access the lower part of the radiator. Okay, so here's our lower shroud. We want to go ahead and attach it. Go ahead and spin the fan. Shouldn't touch anything. All right. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and put our covers back on. All right, so now we have everything back together. We're going to go ahead and fill the radiator and let it run and bubble out all of the air out of the system. We're adding an already 50-50 mix. All right, so I'm going to continue to fill this up. I'm going to fill it up until the level comes up to my little filler about right here. Then I'm going to let it run for about 20 or 15 minutes. It should bubble out the air. Once the thermostat opens, it should take a lot of the fluid out of my reservoir here. And that would tell me that this system is circulating. I'll top it off then, and then I'll be taking a test drive with it.